Hello. I wanted to go over card spreads. And most sources out there seem to skim over that part of the whole process of things. And that always bothered me. I never really, I think it's an important part of the whole application of a card reading. And it's something we don't really look into that much. So you might have a source on the tarot and a book, and they'll do there'll be a lot there about the cards, and maybe just one chapter of 7 pages or so about 2 or 3 card spreads. And it's basically looked at as, okay, this is the way you lay the cards out, and this is what each position means. And that's really all there is to know about it. And I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think there's a lot more importance to it than that. And we seem to keep the card spreads on ice. We don't do much with them as far as improving them over the years. Where we really improved the tarot cards themselves immensely. We've done a lot with the cards. But the spread, not really. And in a way, I think they're very antiquated. They're looked at as something we don't change them. And that bothers me, because today is a whole different age than it was 200 years ago. And everything else gets updated. And I think over the years I found it was important to do a good reading, was important to actually adjust card spreads in ways that I thought was more useful to the client that I was reading, to get more out of the reading. If you take the 3 card spread, which is probably 200 years old or more, and that's past, present, and future, and it's the most basic spread we know, but past, present, and future, it's nothing wrong with looking in the past and seeing where you're headed in the future. That's fine. But if you're going to look into a situation, I think there's more useful elements that could be used instead of past, present, and future. So I use strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. And this gives me a lot more information that I can look into of use to somebody than past, present, and future. Another one might be advantages, disadvantages, and conclusions. This will give you more information to look into than past, present, and future. And we don't really see a card spread until cards are laid into it. And I think that's part of the reason why we haven't done anything with card spreads. But a card spread is the foundation of the reading itself. In order to analyze anything, it's important that it's broken apart into sections. And that's what a card spread is. Each position of that card spread is a viewpoint or an element of your question that we're looking into specifically. So each position should be something that's useful to what it is we're looking into. And I think that's really important. And I started with the Celtic cross, and I went with what they said the Celtic cross is supposed to mean as far as each position. But over time, I found it was more useful to me to change those positions' meanings to something that was more useful. Celtic cross has a traditional Celtic cross has positions. 1 is this covers the client, which is something that influences the client. This crosses the client is number 2 position, and this is an obstacle of something, some type of an obstacle. I look at numbers 1 and 2 position on my Celtic cross as a look at the question itself. A hard look at the question. Those 2 cards allow me to go in depth with the question, maybe an opportunity to rephrase the question. Look at the question. Are we looking at the real question here? Maybe arrange something with it. So that's what I look into. What is, those two cards working together is a look at the question itself. And again, those are antiquated language to it. This covers him, this crosses him. It sounds mysterious in some way. I don't want to get mysterious. I'm looking for facts. I'm looking for information that will be helpful to this client. And when people start paying you money for a reading, they'll appreciate that. And so I found over the years this is what worked for me. So one of two positions I always look at as the question itself. A traditional Celtic cross, the number 3 position is called "This is above him." And what that means is it's the best possible outcome on a classic Celtic cross. Best possible outcome is something that doesn't agree with me. I look at, that implies that I have no control over this issue at all. This is the best that can happen. So to me, the number 3 position is different. It's what the client is currently going through to achieve the number 4 position. And in a number 4 position on a classic cross is, this is below him. And this is considered the real base of the question. I don't really know what they really mean by that. I'm sure there's more explanation I can find about it, but most sources don't really go into it that deeply. So this is below him, number 4 position. I look at it, what is the client trying to achieve in the short term? So they're going through number 3 position to achieve number 4, which is a short term, immediate goal, immediate result of what they're trying to do in the long run. Number 5 position on a classic cross is this is behind him, so that's the past. And I look at number 5 position as an asset the client has. Something they have going for them. Something that they may not realize. And we need to point out to them that they can use and will help them to achieve what they're trying to achieve. And number 6 position on a classic cross is this is before him, and that's the immediate future. And that's pretty close to what I use. Number 6 position on a cross is I have as an opportunity. So an opportunity is more looking at it as, again, the client has options and choices here. They have to find that opportunity. They have to keep an eye out for it. So here's what I'm seeing it is. Now you have to watch for it. Where here we just have something that's going to happen in the immediate future on a classic cross in a number 6 position. That doesn't, I don't believe in fate anymore. I believe in more free will with things. So that's the way I like to do my readings. Number 7 position on a classic cross is this is the client at this moment in time. And I see this number 7 position as the way the client is viewing their own question, how they perceive their question. Are they looking at something in a positive way or in a negative way? This helps me to align the client to the real issue, what's going on, and put them in a perspective that's more true to what's really happening. So how the client sees their own their own question, instead of this is the client at this moment in time. The number 8 position on a classic cross is this is the client's surroundings, family influences and things like that. And I look at number 8 as the timing. Is it time to act or time to wait? Number 9 position is these are the hopes and fears of the client, what the client anticipates on a classic cross. And I look at number 9 position as the purpose of this question, the purpose of this goal that they're looking to achieve. the big picture. And then number 10 position on the classic cross is the completion, the finalization they have. Lots of times it's called the final outcome. And I look at number 10 position as a prediction, but I also look at it as something to watch for, something to keep an eye out for. This could be a little bit extra, some little useful insight as they proceed forward that they should watch for, negative and positive. I think it's important that you have a card spread that has useful elements to it that can be helpful to the client. And I also think it's good to have a spread where it's not so much based on fate as it's based on advice on what they can do about something. To me, the idea of a reading is if the client's going about doing something, doing the best they can to achieve this goal, and they don't succeed, at least they can walk away thinking, I did everything I could to make this happen. And that's a lot easier to live with than if I only did this instead, I would have had it. So, making sure that the client is doing everything that they can to get what they're looking for is useful, has value as far as I'm concerned. So the card spread, I think, has a lot to do with the reading. Again, I'm just sharing my thoughts here on this, and another thing I see with card spreads is we don't dare change the meanings, the purposes, the meanings of each position. In other words, past, present, and future. We never change that. And I think I disagree with that. I think we should change those to something that's more relevant to today's issues. And these card spreads we're using, you could tell by the language and the way what they're looking into, they're very outdated. Like I say, it's antiquated stuff. It's like mysterious, It's like something from way back, and so we never changed the positions of a card spread. If one card spread, if I'm looking into relationships, let's say, I might look for a card spread. I'll find a card spread that I think has positions, meanings that are relevant to what I'm looking into, and I'll use that card spread instead of this card spread, because the positions, meanings here, we're looking into things that would pertain to relationships, versus this card spread is more for career or some other pursuit. So we have to learn all these different card spreads. I think you're better off, my feelings are, you're better off having a card spread with elements into it that those elements would be useful to any question being looked into. And it's the same, so this way you could use the same spread no matter what you're looking into. This allows you to be very good at one spread. I think you're better off being very good at one spread than knowing a bunch of different spreads in a mediocre way. Knowing one spread like the back of your hand and always looking into the same elements for each position, if those elements are useful to any question asked of them, I think you're going to find you have a lot better consistency and a lot more time to focus on what the cards are telling you, instead of thinking about card spreads and what does this position mean as it pertains to the question I'm looking into now. And there's just too many variables. And another YouTube I made earlier, I used the analogy of chess. And I think of the card spread as like the chessboard for a chess master. The chessboard stays consistent from one game to another. But yet there's all sorts of different variables from one game to another. And a card spread staying consistent, if you have a good card spread, the variables will be because of the cards that are laid into those positions and the question you're looking into this time versus the next time. Those are the variables. The questions themselves and the cards that are laid into those positions and the feelings you get while sitting there with that client looking at those cards. So the Celtic cross I use is one that just over time I found it just gradually shifted into what I use. But what I've been using pretty much the same cross for a fairly long time now. And that's number 1 and 2 positions is a look at the question itself. Those two cards working together. Number 3 position is what the client is currently going through right now, the efforts they're making right now, the things they're doing right now to achieve this goal. And the number 4 position is the immediate result they're looking for, or a short-term future event you could look at, but for the immediate result they're looking for. So we're going through number 3 to achieve number 4. Number 5 position on my cross is an asset the client has, something they could look into, they should look at, that will help them achieve something they got going for them. And the number 6 position is an opportunity that's coming, something they got to watch for, an opportunity that's coming in the near future. And then down at the bottom of the pillar, number 7 position is the client's viewpoint of their own question. The number 8 position is the timing of the issue. Time to act now before opportunities are lost, or wait till a time of better advantage for you. And the number 9 position is the big picture, the purpose of this whole objective you're looking into. What's the purpose of this? And the number 10 position is a prediction and things to look for. These elements can be useful to any question you ask them. So now that allows me to use one card spread to do professional level readings and be helpful to clients using one card spread and not have to change from one card spread to another. And basically what those 10 elements are, if you boil them down or if you really streamline it, you're looking at the 4 aspects of them. And that's, what is the question itself? Why do they want this in their life? How are they going to achieve it? And when to act. What, why, how, and when. If you're looking at those 4 aspects with any card spread, what, why, how, and when, and you set up a card spread that you can consistently use the same spread for every reading you do, you have something of value as a reader. I can tell you firsthand that I feel that way because I've done that with the way I read the Celtic Cross. And the pattern on the table doesn't make much difference. To me, it doesn't anyway. It's the shape of a cross and a straight pillar up the side. And that's fine. I do it that way because that's when I started reading tarot cards. This is what I was shown to do, and then as I got better at it, just out of habit, I used that pattern. But the order that they're laid on the table, the cards, and the pattern that's on your table really isn't that important. What's important is that the elements to look into as far as the question goes is that a card spread is your question broken apart into sections. And each one of those sections are something useful that would be of value to look into for the client. No matter what the question is, if you have that, you got a good card spread. So don't be afraid to fine-tune. Again, these are my thoughts. I'm just sharing with you, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it. I'm sure they're just as good. But this is really what worked for me, and I think it really is a great way to do it. This is what I teach in my classes. And so being consistent with your card spread, having a card spread that would work for any question asked of it. And if you want to take a card spread that's out there and fine-tune and rephrase or give new meaning to each one of those positions, or maybe just half of them. The other half you leave the way they are. And then gradually over time you might change this one, you might change that one, whatever. Whatever works for you. But understanding what a card spread is, I think, is important. And a card spread is really the foundation of the reading. And I think we take the card spread too lightly. We look at it as just a way to lay the cards out, and the position meanings are there, and there's not much gone into the value of it and what it really is, and why it works so well. So, consistent card spread, something that would be useful to any question asked. Keeping in mind what, why, how, and when. You could add in there who and where, but I don't bother with that. But I think you'll have something of value for your readings if you can do that. At least I did. So that's all. Thanks for watching.